the create album. Okay, let's try to create this function. It would take the request response and next, save, try to import this. And while we're here, let's just even try to create this delete as well. So albums, delete, an album with the ID. I'll say delete album. Save this one and let's say delete album, just get it, save. Now try to import this dude. Okay, we should be good to go. Let's try to go ahead and create those functions. So we're gonna start with the create album function. So I'll say try and catch. As I said, we'd like to get a couple of different fields from the request.body, which are gonna be the, let's say, title of the album, artist, and release year. Okay, then we'd like to get the image file. I'll say image file, again from request.files. Let's say const image URL, basically the same thing that we have done above. Upload to Cloudinary. This will upload this image file to Cloudinary, then give us the image URL. And it looks like I have a typo, so it should be Cloudinary, right? I'll copy this, fix that name here as well, here and here as well. So basically I have a bunch of different typos, but there we go. Okay, so we have the image URL now. We can create the album, new album. This will take this title, artist, image URL, and release year. Now we might be asking, why don't we put URL and release album, new new album. This will take this title, artist, image URL, and release year. Now we might be asking, why don't we put title equal to title, artist equal to artist? Because the right hand side is equal to the left hand side, so we can really just put it like this. This is the shortcut. Now that we have the album, let's try to save it to the database, which will take a little bit of time. So let's say await and res.status of 200 sent the album. And in the catch, let's say call the console log as well as the next function. So as I said, if you really want to, you can delete this console log from here and just put it into the error handler middleware. I think that would be a better solution because we don't really have to put this console log every single time, right? I don't know. For now, I'll just leave it like this. And now let's try to create the delete album function basically. And again, this will be pretty simple to do. Let's say try and catch. Let's grab the ID from the request params. Now, when we delete an album, we would like to delete all the songs in that album, right? I'll say await song delete many, and we're gonna put the album ID as we're getting from the params, and then we can just delete the album. I hope this makes sense. Since these songs are related with the album, we would like to just delete all of them. Then res.status of 200 album deleted successfully, and call the catch with the next next function, which will call the error handler middleware. Okay, so I think with this we should be good, which will and call the catch is of 200 album deleted successfully, and call the catch with the next error. Delete all. I hope things simple, but for now I'll just leave it like this. this. And now let's try to create the delete album function basically. And again, this will be pretty simple to do. Let's say try and catch. Let's grab the ID from the request params. Now, when we delete an album, we would like to delete all the songs in that album, right? I'll say await song delete many, and we're gonna put the album ID as we're getting from the params, and then we can just delete the album. I hope this makes sense. Since these songs are related with the album, we would like to just delete all of them. Then res.status of 200 album deleted successfully, and call the catch with the next next function, which we'll call the error handler middleware. Okay, so I think with this we should be good to go with the controller functions for the admin. Now there is one more handler middleware. Okay, so I think with this we should be good to go with the controller functions for the admin. Now there is one more thing that I would like to controller functions for the admin. Now there is one more thing that I would like to add so that we can really check if the user is admin, right? So like you might say we are already checking for it. That's correct. But in the client, like what do I mean? Let me show you an image. Okay, so here, like if I am the admin, I should be able to see this button. But how can I check if I am admin or not? So I would send a request to an endpoint like check, right? And this would tell me if this user is admin or not. If not, I will not see this button. But if if I am the admin, I can see that. So let's try to create this check endpoint as well. I'll just put it at the very top. I will say router.get. This will be a get request to /check really. And here we would like to just check if this is admin or not. So I'll say check admin. Now to be able to check this, first we need to require the admin, right? So we'll just say check if this user is like logged in and require admin. If so, now you can just really call this function. And this is going to be pretty simple. So we can even put it here, but let's try to create that under this controller. Okay, I'll just get just like that. And basically we would like to return the field for the admin. So I will say res.status 200. Now we can say success true, but I'll say admin true, just like this. Now I hope this makes sense. Basically, we will send a request to this endpoint and we will check if user is the admin. If so, we're going to call this function so that we can really return some response to the client. This will say, yes, you're the admin. If not, we would say false, right? Because this function would already fail. If you take a look at it, if you are not the admin, you will say unauthorized. You must be an admin. And here I think we can fix those as well. Let's just say call the next function with the error. Okay, we got the next. Let's do the same thing here, but looks like we don't really need to because we don't have try catch. Okay, let's save. We should be good to go. Now you might be asking, why do we put all of them like both here, here, like 5 times? Couldn't we just put it once and it would be applied to all these routes? Well, that's a great question. So let's try to fix it. I will say router.use protect route and require admin. Now I can really just delete those. Let's just press Ctrl D a couple of times, select all of them, delete that. There we go. Now we just put it in one place and it has been implemented to all of them. Before you call this, we're going to call these 2 functions, and if they are successfully done, we're going to call the next function. Same for these as well. So this is that slightly optimized clean code, right? There we go. I will save, and if we take a look at the terminal, we shouldn't have really any errors. Okay, so if you want to, you can test out these routes. I don't know, maybe you would use something like Postman, but I don't really want to waste any time. So let's try to just build all of the other routes and we can go ahead, test all of them in the front end with our actual application. So we'll be able to just see the admin page. And we'll just test this out from the UI. So with that in mind, in the next section, we're going to create the album routes, right? So here we'll be implementing those so that we can really fetch all the albums in a specific one. So I'll see you in the next section. Okay, so this is where we left. We'd like to implement a route to be able to fetch all the albums. So let's say when we hit the slash, which is under the API albums, we would like to basically fetch all the albums. So I'll say get all albums, and there is going to be one more endpoint that that we're going to create, which will be again a get request, but this time we're going to pass an ID, right? So I'll just say just ID, or if you really want to be specific, you can say album ID. And here we'll just say instead get album by ID. Let's try to create these functions. First of all, I will kill these files. Let's create this album.controller.js file. Let's say export, const, and both of those functions. Let's get this one as well. There we go. And for this auto-suggested code, I don't really think if I said it already, but I'm using Codium, which is, which is this one, and it is free to use. So feel free to use it if you really want to. So let's get the next functions as well. Save this, shrink the left-hand side. Go ahead, try to import those, and make sure you put .js at the end. Otherwise, it would crash, right? It wouldn't work because we're using type of module. And here I will have a try catch block where I can just fetch all the albums. I'll say await album.find, and if you don't really put anything here, right, if this is an empty object or if it is completely empty, it'll fetch all the albums. Let's make this to be async so that we can use await, and let's try to import this manually. So I'll just go above and try to import it. Import album from this location, and just make sure you have it by pressing Ctrl space. There we go. We just find all the albums. Let's try to return it as status of 200 and send the JSON just like that. And you can just return it without an object. So if you just send this like this, I think it would be better. So that we have the exact same code base basically. Just go ahead, put the albums and call the next function with the error. Okay, then we would like to have one more function, which we already have at the line 13, get album by ID. So let's say try and catch. This is the first thing that I'd like to do. Make this function to be async, and let's try to grab the album ID. So you can say const request.params, and we can destructure that, which is going to be the album ID. And I will say, okay, sorry, I can't really type. Sorry about this. There we go. Const album. Let's try to find it. I'll say album.find by ID, and we're gonna pass the ID into it. Now, when we fetch an album by ID, we would like to fetch all the songs into it, because here, let's say, like here we are fetching all the albums, right, by calling this function. But now if I click to this one, I would like to fetch all the songs into that album, so I can really see this kind of a UI. I click to this, and now I am on this page where I can see all the songs. But now how can I fetch those? Well, there is a function called populate, and we're gonna put these songs into it. Now, why do we put as songs? How does this work? if we open up the album model, we say that the songs under the album are an array of IDs, right? So you can't really have the song information. It is only the ID. So that's why we say populate them. So this will go ahead, take a look at the song table and fetch each song, right? So that you can get the title, the image, as well as the, I think, the artist. And you can get different fields as well, like duration and release date. I hope this makes sense. This populate function is really, really important, and you'll be using all the time if you're using MongoDB and Mongoose. So just keep this populate in mind. This joins different tables, and so yeah. So we just got the album. Now let's say if this album doesn't exist, if I can talk, we'll like to basically say return res status 400 album not found. But in the else case, we can just return the album as it is. There we go. And I think if you don't put the status by default, it should be 200. But let's just make it to be explicit by typing this out. And here we can call the next function with the error. There we go. These are the two different functions that we need for the album routes. And if you really want to, you can make them protected, and so that other users, like if users are not authenticated, they cannot fetch it. But in our application, if we are logged out, right, even if we are not logged in, we should be able to listen a song, which I think it is a better option. So I will leave them as it is. I will not put the protect route function here. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll see you in the next section. Okay, so in this section, we would like to build the routes for the songs. So the first route we're going to have to be able to fetch all songs. And this would be needed in the admin dashboard. So this is the admin page. When we visit this, we should be able to see all the songs that we have in the database. And we are going to be sorting them from the newest one to the oldest one to the below, right? So this would be, let's say, the newest one, and at the bottom, it would be the oldest one. And how can we make this logic? So let's go ahead and try to create this function under the controller. Let's say song.controller.js, export const, put the function name, async, get the request response, and next we're gonna have try and catch. Let's get all the songs from the database. Let's say song.find, and let's try to import the song manually. I'll shrink the left hand side. Let's get it from here. Make sure you have .js at the end. Then we would like to sort this basically. Let's say sort, and the field that we would like to sort with is going to be created at, and we will say -1. That means the newest one would be at the top, oldest one would be at the bottom. And we will say, I think I'll just put a comment. I'll say -1 is equal to descending, right? Which means the newest one to the oldest one. And same for the ascending, but it would be the clockwise, right? All right, so we're gonna go ahead, just say res.json, return the songs. And in the catch, we will say call the next function with the error. All right, so this is the very first function that we would need, but what you would like to do is only allow the admin to fetch this, like fetch all songs, right? I'll say protect route, if I can type, and we need to import this. Then we will get the require admin as well. Let's try to get those from here under the middleware. And there we go. This is the file that we have. Okay, so only admin can actually get all songs. Now in the home page, we would like to have a couple of different sections. So here we can see we are getting 6 different random musics, right? Different songs. And these are going to be what we call as featured, right? And these are going to be for made for you. And below to this, there is like trending songs. And we would like to create these endpoints. Let's start with the featured one. I will go ahead under the song route.js file, duplicate this one, but this is not going to be require admin or protect route, right? So even if you are unauthenticated, you should be able to get featured songs. And the endpoint for this is going to be /featured, let's say. All right, let's try to create this function and then try to import it. Let's say async request and response as well as the next. Save this file. Let's try to import it. And while we're here, let's just try to duplicate this twice. We're gonna have made for ya, right? And we're gonna have /trending songs. Let's try to create those functions. Get made for you, and I think we can just put songs at the end. Get trending songs. All right, let's try to create those functions and import it as well. Okay, just like this, and get the other function as well. Get made for you. All right, let's save and try to import it so that we don't really have any errors. And we're gonna start with this one, right? All right, so what do we want to do? Every single time when we refresh our homepage, we would like to get random musics, right? Random songs. Like in a real world Spotify application, you would have some machine learning going on for the made for you section, but in our application, we will actually just fetch them randomly, right? Because we can't really build an algorithm for kind of like the machine learning, right? I just don't have any idea at all. And probably you don't have to, and you don't really need to. All right, let's try to build this function. The very first thing I'd like to do is just have a try catch in the first place. And I'll say const songs, and we'll call this song model that we have. And here we can use something called aggregate. And I'll just put a comment here. I'll say fetch 4 or maybe even 6, right? Because in the featured songs, we're gonna fetch 6 different items. Let's say fetch 6 random songs using MongoDB's aggregation pipeline. Okay, you can take a look at it, what this means after this tutorial. Like you can pause the video, take a look at it in detail. But basically, this is how we can aggregate data as the name suggests. There are a lot of different usages. We're going to take a look at a couple of them, right? So this will take an argument at first, which is going to be an object. We're going to have give us sample size of 6, right? Every time we would like to fetch 6 different random items. And I'll go here, put a comma, and open up another object. And the fields that we would like to fetch is going to be the image, right? The, let's say, music title, and then the artist name. So we can go ahead, fetch those, and we can get them with this project field. We're going to say, okay, give us the ID as well, which will just put 1, title, give that artist, image URL, and obviously the audio URL, because when you click to it, any of them, you would like to play it immediately, which will be possible with the audio URL. So let's say audio URL, this will be equal to 1. If you really want to, you can put other fields here as well, such as the album ID or the album itself, etc. But we don't really need it in our case. There we go. After this, we'll just say res.json. We'll just return these songs that we just fetched. And here we can call the next function to handle the errors. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. We just use the MongoDB aggregation pipeline. Every time it'll give us random 6 songs, right? And we're gonna get those fields so that we can really display this UI in our application. All right, I'll just do Control-Z because this looks a little bit messy. Then the next function is gonna be this get like made for you songs, right? Let's try to go here. I will put it above and just try to implement this function. Now in this function, as I said, I'll be fetching them randomly. If you really want to, you can go with some fancy algorithms to fetch some songs for the currently authenticated user, right? But in my case, I will just keep it a little bit simpler and instead just fetch randomly, just like we have done above. So what I can do, basically copy this entire try catch and put it here, call the size to be 4. Okay, so as I said, if you really want to, go ahead and update this, update the logic so that you can actually get the songs for the currently authenticated user, but I'll just leave it as it is so that we don't really complicate any further. There we go. We just sent the songs in the response. I'll do the same thing for this function as well. Let's go ahead and paste it. Again, I will send 4 different songs. Now you might be asking, if you are creating same 3 functions, why don't you delete these and just use this one for all of them? Well, we could technically do, but as I said, I'll just leave it here in case you want to update them, right? If you don't really want to, you can delete these 2 and use this function here and here as well. I hope that makes sense. So this is gonna be it for the songs route, where we can get all of them only if we are the admin. But if we are admin or if we are unauthenticated, we can still get these 3 endpoints. So with that, I'll see you in the next section. Alright, so let's go ahead and build the user routes. So the first thing we would like to add to fetch all the users so that we can really show them in the right hand side. Right here we'll have all the users in our database and we can show all of them here in the chat user list as well. So I'll go ahead, delete this function. I will say under the user route, under the slash, we would like to basically get all users. And I will say this should be protected. Let's say protect route. And the reason is we don't really want to see the activities if we are not logged in. And we shouldn't be able to send messages to different users if we are not logged in, right? So that's the logic, as you can tell. Let's say import protect route from this file. And I think I'll just shrink the left hand side. Let's say get all users function. Okay, let's try to go ahead, create this controller for user, basically. Let's say export const function and just try to import it under this file. Okay, so later we're gonna have one more function, which I'll just leave it as to do. We would like to get messages between 2 users. So we can really just see all the messages that we have with Tyler, let's say. In this case, here we can fetch those, and this would be possible with the help of this route that we'll create later in the video. For now, let's save this one and try to create this function where we can really get all users. So at this point, you can pause the video and try this out. All right, so I'll just say const users, await user.find. Let's try to import the user, by the way, at the top from this file. User.find. Now we just fetched every single user, but as you can tell, I don't really want to see myself on the activities or here on the chat page. So I will say just extract the current user from this list. So let's say, let's find the current user ID, which will be coming from request.auth.user ID, just like this. And we can get this auth and user ID because we are protecting this route, right? And we are also using this clerk middleware in the index.js. Okay. So I will go ahead, say this is the current user ID. We would like to find all the users, but except from this one, right? Let's say we're not equal to, I think I just made a mistake. We'll just say where the clerk ID is not equal to the current user ID. So this is how we can type this out and filter some stuff, right? Then I will say res.json send the users. Let's be specific and put the status code as well. In the catch, call the next function. Okay, that should be it for the user controller.js file. I think the next one could be the stat routes. So we can really fetch some statistics. And let me show you what I mean. In the admin page, let me just go through it. Okay, so here are the stats that we have. We're gonna fetch the total number of songs, albums, artists, and users in our database. So fetching this one, this, and this is gonna be pretty easy and simple, but this will be a little bit more involved. And we're gonna see the reason why. But first, let's try to just implement these three, right? So I'll go here, shrink the left-hand side. I will say if we visit the slash endpoint, I would like to basically call this function. For now, let's keep it in line. Later, I will take this into the controller file. Let's say async. We're gonna get the request, response, and next. And we'd like to have try and catch. So how can we fetch all the songs, right? So we can just say total songs. Let's say await song. Let's import it. Okay, from this file, but this should be like this, I believe. Song model.js. Okay, looks like the route is not correct. So models song model.js. There we go. So you can basically say song.count documents, and this will give you all the number of songs. Let's do the same thing for users. I'll say user.count documents, and this is going to be total number of users. Let's do the same thing for the albums. And call the album. Okay, this is really annoying, but let's say album.model.js and get the album. Okay, so this is how easy it is to fetch all these, right? But now we can't really just say fetch all the artists in the same way because we don't really have this artist model, right? You can't just really do it because you don't have this file in the first place. Under the models, we have those, but not the artist. So we're gonna get there how to fetch those, but here we can see another problem. We're gonna wait for this to complete, then we'll be able to fetch this. And once this is completed, then we'll be able to fetch those. So instead of these, I would like like to optimize my code a little bit. So I'll say const, and here I'll say await promise dot all. Basically, we would like to run all of them in parallel, right, at the same time. And we're gonna get the total songs, total albums, and let's say total users. We're gonna go inside and basically put all of them one by one. So for the total songs, let's put this. For the total albums, we're gonna put this. And for the total users. Okay, so now this is the optimized version of this one. And here we'd like to have something else, which is gonna be unique artists, right? How many artists do we have in our database? So for this, we need to just aggregate some data. I'll say song.aggregate, and this would look a little bit complicated, but let's just try to go step by step. So the first argument this takes is an array with this object. What we would like to do, just combine all the songs with all the albums. So let's say union with the call of albums, right? Then we will just put this pipeline as an empty array. So this is just needed so that it doesn't really, oops, let me just make this happen. Okay, so that it would give us the actual data that we would like to have. Then here, the second argument is going to be another object where we'll just say group them with the artist. So we'll say underscore ID is going to be the artist field. And finally, we'll just count them. So I know this might look a little bit complicated, but I'll just try to explain. Let's say count with the count field. There we go. Okay, so basically what we have done, fetch all the songs, fetch all the albums, and combine them, group them with the unique artists, and count number of artists. So this is the syntax specific to aggregate pipeline. You don't really need to memorize this or anything like that. This is always in the documentation, and nowadays it is basically always available with the help of AI. Okay, so this is not something that you would like to memorize or even think about. There we go. Now that we've fetched all of them, we can basically return it as a response, right? I'll just say JSON. We would like to return total albums, songs, users, and we will say total artists. Let's say I'll just say total artists, and we'll say unique artists. Now this is going to be an array, so I'll just say get the first value. We'd like to count, so I'll just say dot count. In case this is undefined, we'll just say 0, right? And in the catch, we can call the next function with the error. Oops, if I can type. There we go. So believe it or not, this is the entire function we need for the stats. I will delete this, and let's try to put this into its own file. I will copy this entire thing, and what I want to do, protect this, as well as require the admin. So only admin can actually fetch those data. And I'll say get stats. Let's try to create that file and function. So stat.controller.js. Paste that value in. There we go. We need to import these models. Let's say album and the user. And just make sure you put .js at the end. So here I'll select all of them and just say .js. There we go. Delete these. Let's try to import this one. .js, this should be, but I think the route is not correct. Okay, it's correct. There we go. So with this should be good to go. We shouldn't have any errors in the terminal, but looks like we have. It says under the song controller, you are importing something. Okay, what this says, I'm just showing the left-hand side. Cannot find module song controller imported from song route.js. Okay, if we visit song route.js, we should put the .js at the end. Otherwise, there you can see it crashes. And I think we have one more issue under the stat route. We should put .js at the end. Now it should be working as expected. Okay, so I think with this, we have completed most of our API, where we basically have all of our routes. There is one thing that we are missing, which is going to be Scikit.io implementation. So I'll just go ahead and add a to-do, scite.io will be implemented, right? Or just let's leave it like scite.io. This would be later in the video. Once we have completed everything in the front end, we would like to add real-time communications. We'll just come back to this backend folder and set up the scite.io, then handle the real-time features. But for now, this should be good to go. I think in the next section, we're going to move on with the front end. So I'll see you there. Okay, so we have been working with the backend for a long time. Now let's switch to the front end. I will open up my terminal, and I think I'll just leave the backend open, up and running, and I will just cd into the front end with a different tab, and I'll say npm run dev. So this should go ahead and open up the localhost 5173. The first thing that I would like to do is just update this port to be 3000. This is how I really used to, right? I'll just go ahead and update this. Let's see how we can do it. Under the vidconfig.ts file, there is this field called server, I believe. Where it should be, let's say, yeah, okay, let's say server, and here we should have the port. This is going to be 3000. Once I save, this will restart from scratch. Right? And if we refresh, now we're going to get that application in the first place. There we go. Okay, so that was the first thing that we would like to do. The other thing that I want to do is to install a package called React Router DOM so that we can really set up the pages. Currently, we don't have that package, right? I will open up a new terminal, cd into the front end, just say npm I react dash router dash DOM and call that. So this will basically allow us to use react dash router dash DOM. and call that. So this will basically allow us to use, allow us to have different pages. And let's see how we can do it. The first thing we would like to do is just get the browser router and wrap our application with it so that we can use all the functions coming from this package in our entire application. Let's see how we can make that work. I'll go ahead, maybe just delete everything that I have here, and instead I will wrap them with routes, which is going to be coming from that package. There we go. We can delete those for now. And I will say, just kill the left hand side. Let's say route, and also import this from the same place. If we visit the home page, we would like to call an element called home page. This is something that we'll create just in a second. And if we visit a page like auth callback, we would like to call the auth callback page component, which is something that we'll create just in a second. I will go ahead, create a folder under the source called pages. And the first page that I would like to create is going to be home. So I will just say home and put my home page in it. .tsx. Let's say RAFCE, save, import this one. Let's do the same thing to here for the auth callback. And I will say auth callback page.tsx. Let's create this boilerplate. And how can I create those RAFCEs? Is because I have this extension called React snippets. Okay, it is this one. Go ahead and install it. This should be good to go. Let's save. Try to import this one. Now we should be able to have those different pages. We are in the home page. There we can see. Let's visit /auth callback. There we go. This is in the callback page. Now in the auth callback page, what do we want to really see? Let me just show you. It will be this page. Just for a second, we will see logging you in and redirecting. And in the background, this would save the user to the database. Because let me just show you the database as well as the dashboard of Clerk. So in the Clerk dashboard, we have this user that is signed in, right? But if we go into the MongoDB database, let me just quickly log in and come back. So I am in my database, and here we can see we don't really have any users. It is because we didn't sync them up, right? When someone logs in to Clerk, when they sign up, we don't really save them to the database. But we have created the endpoint. Now it is time to call it from our auth callback page. Now to be able to make that happen, I will not be using fetch API, right? Instead, I'll be using Axios because it is really a lot more comfortable, right? I will say npm install Axios and just make sure you're under the front end. Okay, this will go ahead and install it. While it is installing, let's try to actually set that up. So let's say axios.ts, and here we'd like to just really set that up in 2 lines. I'll say first import Axios from the package, and then here we would like to create an instance. So I'll say const Axios instance, this is gonna be, and we'll say axios.create. Here we would like to put a base URL. So I'll say base URL, which will be our server, right? It is localhost 5000. Okay, just like that, we should be able to use this to be able to send requests. That could be get, delete, post, put, patch, any of those methods, right? All right. So with this in mind, I think we can just really go here. We should be able to call the Axios instance, import it, and call it with get method, post, and as I said, with really anything. Now, there is one thing that we would like to keep in mind. Since we are using Clerk, when we are sending a request, we just need to tell that we are authenticated. And to be able to make this happen, we need to send a token in the authorization headers, right? So let me just show you an example what I mean. I'll say const response. We'll say, maybe actually just create the function first. Let's say const get some data. This is going to be async function. Let's say this is just an example. You don't really have to follow along with me. Let's say await Axios instance dot get. Let's send a request to our endpoint. So you don't really need to put HTTP localhost 5000 /API because this part is already in our base URL. And let's even add the API at the end, just like this /API. Now every time you do just /, it will put everything that you have here in front. Okay, So it would, oops, it would actually look like this, but we're just putting slash because we have our base URL already. Okay, let's say we just want to get all of the users. Here we would like to put our options, right? You would like to say headers and then authorization. You would like to put your token, which is going to be under the bearer. And you would like to send this token every single time when you are doing a request, so that your backend can take a look at that token and understand if you are authenticated or not. So let's say we're going to get some response, and let's try to console log it. So let's say response. Okay, now just imagine we're going to have 5, 10, 15 different functions. Every single time we cannot just come here and add these headers. This wouldn't be really comfortable. Instead, we can just create this in one place so that in every single request, these headers would be included. How can we make this happen? So let's try to delete this. We're going to create a provider, right? I will save these files and open up my frontend source and providers folder, basically. And I will call it as auth provider.tsx. Let's try to create it. Okay, so here basically we would like to just add that authorization header in every single request. And this can be possible with this provider. I will just go ahead, just get the token first. Let's say const use auth, import it from the clerk, then this will give us a function called get token. All right, and we can get the user ID as well. So I will say, let's have a loading state and set loading. This will be true initially. Let's just try to type this out, and I think this will make sense 100%. Let's say use effect. Whenever we call this provider component, this should run automatically. All right, so I will say const initialize auth. So I'll say init auth, which is going to be an async function. Let's say async arrow function. All right, so we'll say try and catch. Here we would like to basically just update that token in the authorization headers. I will say const token, get it from this function, and this will take a little bit of time. So let's say await, and we would like to just put that logic. I will create a function for this called update API token, and we're gonna put the token in it. Let's try to create that function. Let's say const update API token. This is gonna take the token, which can be string or it could be null, right? If user is not authenticated, the token will be null, so we'll be sending it. And this is how we are using in TypeScript. We're just basically adding the type into every single thing that we need. So here we're going to go ahead and just say, if we have the token, we would like to update the Axios instance defaults headers, and we'll say common the authorization header, and we're gonna put the token and just set it. But else, if there is not token, we can basically just delete that. Axios defaults headers common, which is the authorization header. We're gonna delete that, and we're gonna tell to our backend that this user is not authenticated because we don't have the token. There we go. So this is the entire function that we need, and we can even shorten this by deleting those brackets. Okay, so this is how easy it is to create this function. Then I will say, if we have the token, we can do something here. This is going to be later in the video. For now, let's just have it as to do, or even just delete this so we don't really confuse anyone. In the catch, let's try to put a console log. I'll say error in auth provider. And here we would like to call this init auth function. And here it will, excuse me, it will ask us to put the get token function. And now we have the type error. So here, let's just try to disable this. if we put just any, like this would still get an error, right? Let's say put the error into the console. Okay, this is some annoying ESLint error. I would like to copy this name and basically disable this. Let's go into the ESLint under the rules, paste that in and just say this should be off. Okay, now if you save it, we're not gonna get that error. And now also in the catch, if something goes wrong, we would like to just call this function called update API token with the null value so that we know user is not really authenticated. And finally, we can just say loading state is going to be equal to false. We call the function, and if we are in the loading state, we can just show a loader. So let's say if loading, let's try to return a nice UI. I will say we would like to have a div with a couple of different classes. This will be height screen with full, flex, items would be centered, justify centered as well. Then we're going to go ahead and just say loader icon. And to be able to get this loader icon, I will have a package. So just make sure you're under the front end, clear up the terminal and just say npm install lucid react. Okay, this is a really cool package that we can use for the icons. Let's import this loader icon and we can give this a couple of different classes like size of 8, text emeralds of 500, and I'll just say animate spin so that we can really just see a spinner on the screen. And after the loading state, if we are not loading, we can basically return the children. Now you might be asking, what are those children? We can take a look at it. So first we're going to get it as the prop. Let's put the type. Now TypeScript says, I don't really know what the type of this is, right? And you can say this is taking an object, which is a children, right? And this is the type, React node. And it looks like we're not using this for now, so let's delete it. Okay. So we're going to go into the main.tsx, wrap our application with that auth provider. So with this now, every single time when you refresh your page here, in any page, basically, whenever you refresh, it will actually call this auth provider use effect, right? This will run because we are putting it into the root. This will always run when you visit your application for the first time. And here for a second, I have loading state. That's why I can see this thing, right? And I even want to make this to be dark mode. I will go into the index.html and here we'll just